Your classwork today should include you writing your name, your class period, and then I would recommend that you look at your book and that you go ahead and write all of your problems down so that you have them when you go home. The first one here is number 2, so I would do that. I would write out my equation, and once I have my final answer, don't forget to come up here and write your answer in this box provided for you. So here I have some of my problems written down, and I'm going to go ahead and work out number 2 and a few other problems alongside with you guys. Alright, so number 2, step 1 is we make our t-chart, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The next step would be to simplify. I see that I have a 3z here with this 2 as a whole number, so I cannot really combine those, and on this right side I only have a 13. I cannot combine, so I'm going to go ahead and start moving this number right here over so that I can get z all by itself. The opposite of subtract would be to add, so if I add 2 on this side, I can add 2 on this side and we're even. So I have my 3z all by itself. 2 plus 2, or I'm sorry, negative 2 plus 2 is just 0. We don't need to write it. That is going to equal 13 plus 2, which is 15. My next step is I notice that 3 is next to the z. That means multiplication. The opposite of multiply would be to divide, so I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 3, and I'm going to divide the 15 by 3 as well to keep us even on both sides. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we're just left with z, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Here's my final answer, and I'm not going to forget that I need to put it over here in my box. Let's look at number 4. This one does have a little bit of simplifying that we can do before we start actually solving, okay? Let's go ahead and set up our t-chart. And I'm noticing right here that this x and this x are on the same side, so I'm going to go ahead and combine them. So 4x plus 2x is 6x minus 5 equals, and I'm going to leave this negative 2 all by itself because that's just the way it is right now. Okay. Now I'm going to look 6x minus 5. I cannot combine those because I have this x right here and this 5 does not have an x. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave that as it is, but I'm going to go ahead and move the 5. So opposite of this negative 5 is a positive 5. Let's move that to the other side. If we do it on both sides, we're even. That's okay. And we can pull down this 6x, stayed all by itself. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0, so we don't need to write that. And on the right side, we have negative 2 plus 5, which is a positive 3. Our goal is to get x by itself. It still has a 6 attached to it, so I'm going to do the opposite. So right now they're stuck together, so that means they're being multiplied. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite, which is divide by the 6. And if I divide by 6 on this side, I can divide on 6 on the other side, and then I'm even. Okay, so 6 divided by 6 is 1, so I have x, and it's going to equal the other side, which is a 1/3. Don't forget, once you have your answer, go ahead and put it up there in the box. And whoops, I just made a mistake here, guys. I hope that you caught that. 3 over 6 is not 1/3, it is 1/2. Sorry about that, it happens. I want you to try number 5 all on your own. Remember that we're going to start with our t-chart, and our goal here is to get x all by itself, so I would start by trying to find out the inverse operation of this 3 that's being divided. I would do the opposite of dividing by 3 on both sides. For number 6, you have 4 answer choices, and the question is, which of those solutions includes this -4? The only way that you're going to find out is by solving A, B, C, and D to find the correct answer. Number 7. Is 7 a solution of 5x minus 3 equals 12? Well, the only way that we could find out is by taking the 7 and substituting it in for this x. So let's see if it works out. First, let's set up our t-chart. And let's do 5. We're going to put a 7 in there for the x, minus 3 equals 12. So first thing, we have our PEMDAS. So we know that the P in PEMDAS is 5 times 7. Then we have minus 3. And we can't do anything about the 12 yet. 35 minus 3, is that going to give us 12 on this side? Are they going to be equal to each other? What we get here and what we get here? If they are equal, then yes, it is a solution. If they're not equal to each other, then no, it is not a solution. Number 17. Let's take a look at this one and let's do our t-chart. On this left side, I see 8x plus 5. There's nothing that I can combine or simplify. On the other side, I have 3x plus 15. Nothing that I can combine or simplify. So I'm just going to go ahead and start moving my x's to the left and my other whole numbers to the right hand side. I'm going to start by moving this -5. And if I subtract 5 on this side, I'm going to subtract 5 on the other side to keep us even. My 8x is going to come down. 5 minus 5 is just 0, but we don't need to write that. Oops, and don't forget your x. And it equals on the other side 3x, and then I have 15 minus 5, which is a positive 10. Now I'm going to take the 3x. Since it's positive, I'm going to do the opposite, subtract 3x. If I subtract 3x on this side, I also need to subtract 3x from the other side. 8x minus 3x is 5x, and 3x minus 3x is just 0, so I don't need to write it. And then I have a 10 left over right there. Okay. Now I have 5x on the left and 10 on the right. My goal is still to get the x by itself. So I see that this 5 and the x are being multiplied. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is to divide. And I'm going to divide by 5 because that's what I want to get rid of. If I divide by 5 on this side, I also do it on the other. 5 divided by 5 is just 1, so we don't need to write the 1, just x equals. And then 10 divided by 5 is 2. Don't forget, put your answer up in the box. Number 24. Let's start by making our t-chart all the way down to the bottom, just in case. And I'm going to make a note here on the side because we need to look carefully at this number and at this number, okay? We cannot forget our PEMDAS, order of operations. There's no need to guess. Math gives us a perfectly clear set of laws, and if you follow them, you will always be correct. We have to notice right here, this multiplication is before this subtraction. Multiply before we subtract. Therefore, we have to distribute this 3 before we subtract the 2. Okay? Let's get started with that. So, since we can't subtract the 2, we're just going to copy it down. And now we're going to go ahead and distribute across to simplify this side here. So we have a negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Negative 3 times negative x is going to give us a positive 3x. On the other side, there's only a 5 right here in the front, so we don't need to worry about anything else other than distributing across to both. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times negative x is negative 5. We're not carrying this 5 all the way over. We're just going to bring down plus 4x. Alright, now let's go ahead and simplify further. We've gotten done with our parentheses. There is no exponents. We've multiplied across. Now let's see what else we need to do with addition and subtraction. Okay, 2 minus 12 is negative 10 plus 3x. We cannot combine because this one has this x right here and this one does not have a variable. So we have negative 10x plus 3x. Then on the right side, we're going to bring down the 10, and negative 5x plus 4 is just going to be a positive x. We're looking pretty simple so far, but we have a little bit further to go. Remember, our goal is to get x by itself on the left side. So we're going to go ahead and move this negative 10 over to the other side by doing the opposite, which is add 10. If you add 10 on this side, you're going to go ahead and add 10 on this side to keep everything even. Negative 10 plus 10 is just 0, so we don't need to write it. We're going to bring down the 3x to keep ourselves neat. 10 plus 10 is just 20, and then plus x. We want all of our x's on the left side, so let's go ahead and subtract the x from the right, and we're also going to subtract on the left to keep us even. X minus x is just 0. But on this side, 3x minus x is going to give us 2x, and it's going to equal our 20. 2x, remember that they're being multiplied since they're right next to each other. We're going to do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide. You divide on one side, go ahead and divide on the other to make things even. 2 divided by 2 is simply 1, so we just have an x equals 20 divided by 2, which is 10. Don't forget, once you have your answer, go ahead and place it up in the box at the top. Make sure you have finished all the problems on this side of the worksheet.